And remember, with Canada, we don't need their cars, we don't need their lumber, we don't need their energy, we don't need anything from Canada, and yet it costs us $200 billion a year in subsidy to keep Canada afloat. So when I say they should be a state, I mean that. I really mean that, because we can't be expected to carry a country that is right next to us on our border.
I did see the media report indicating that, yet again, the president is sowing uncertainty and chaos, attempting to undermine our economy by implementing tariffs and then quickly pulling them off. He has realized what we told him from the beginning, which is that these tariffs hurt Americans.
Trucks crossing the U.S.-Canada border through BC to Alaska could be facing extra fees in the future. While Premier David Eby has mentioned the idea before, this time he's taking serious action. The province will be tabling a new law that allows the government to take strong countermeasures in response to U.S. tariffs.
It'll be one tool among a number of tools that enables us to respond to escalations from the American side.
Did you know Canada could literally choke Alaska's supply lines with the stroke of a pen? It's not science fiction, it's geography. The entire United States state is physically cut off from the mainland, forcing all trucks, supplies, and even many flights to pass through Canadian territory. British Columbia just announced they're looking at slapping hefty tolls on American commercial trucks heading to Alaska, a direct response to Trump's tariffs on Canadian goods. This isn't just politics anymore. It's a high-stakes game where everyday Alaskans could soon be paying double for basic necessities like food and fuel. And Trump's reaction? Absolute meltdown. When global powers clash, Canada stands at the crossroads, and the ripple effects reach us all. But here's the thing. Over 72% of people who watch this channel aren't subscribed. If you want to stay informed about the global tensions and political power plays that are already reshaping everyday life, not just headlines, now's the time to hit that subscribe button. It's free, it helps us keep doing this work, and it ensures you won't miss the next chapter in stories the mainstream media rarely touches. Thanks for being here. Now let's break down what's really behind Canada's bold move against the United States, and why Alaska is at the center of it all. Canada's power play. Why British Columbia's toll proposal is more than just politics. Did you know that Canada has been quietly holding a geographical trump card over the United States for decades? Now they're finally playing it. What we're witnessing isn't just another political spat between neighbors, it's Canada leveraging its unique position to strike back against what it perceives as American economic aggression. The Alaska Highway stands at the center of this escalating dispute. Built during World War II, this crucial supply route isn't just important, it's absolutely essential for Alaska's survival. Every day, commercial trucks carrying everything from fresh produce to oil industry equipment rumble along this lifeline. And now British Columbia is threatening to turn this highway into an expensive toll road specifically targeting American commercial vehicles. Premier David Eby's toll proposal represents a calculated response to mounting tensions. The Alaska Trucking Association has already sounded alarm bells, warning that these tolls would significantly increase transportation costs, disrupt supply chains, and raise prices for essential goods that Alaskans rely on. For a state already facing higher costs due to its remote location, this represents an existential threat. But this toll proposal is just one piece of a much larger strategy. Eby has also directed his government to stop purchasing American products wherever possible, and ordered provincial liquor stores to pull alcohol products from Republican-led states off their shelves. These aren't random acts of retaliation, they're part of a coordinated response to what Canada views as economic bullying. What makes this situation so remarkable is how it exposes a vulnerability most Americans never consider. Their northern neighbor actually holds physical control over an entire US state. The geography is unforgiving. Alaska is effectively an island separated from the mainland United States by hundreds of miles of Canadian territory. Every major transportation route connecting Alaska to the rest of America crosses through Canada. Premier Abiy's inflammatory statement that the US president wants to annex Canada and turn us into the 51st state reveals the depth of Canadian frustration. This isn't just about tolls or tariffs, it's about sovereignty and respect between supposed allies. And Abiy isn't just talking. He's preparing legislation that would allow his province to respond rapidly to American executive orders. For many Canadians, this confrontation represents a rare moment of leverage against their much larger neighbor. Some have even suggested taking additional steps, like banning certain American politicians from entering the country. There's a palpable sense that Canada is finally standing up for itself after years of perceived economic mistreatment. The tolls represent just the beginning of potential leverage Canada could exercise. Theoretically, Canada could restrict air traffic, limit border crossing hours, implement extensive inspection regimes, or take countless other administrative actions that would effectively isolate Alaska without violating any treaties. It's a sobering reality check for American policymakers who've long taken Canadian cooperation for granted. What's particularly concerning for Alaskans is that the trucks targeted by these proposed tolls aren't just carrying ordinary goods. They're transporting high-value cargo that needs to move quickly, including perishable foods and critical supplies for the state's oil industry. Any disruption to this supply chain would have immediate and far-reaching consequences for Alaska's economy and the daily lives of its residents. Behind the scenes, Abiy is working to strengthen internal Canadian trade networks, attempting to reduce his country's dependence on American markets. He's pushing to remove trade barriers between Canadian provinces while simultaneously creating new obstacles for American goods. This two-pronged approach suggests Canada is preparing for a prolonged economic confrontation. For the average American, this dispute might seem like distant political theater, but for Alaskans, it's a stark reminder of their state's unique vulnerability. When Premier Abiy discusses passing legislation to respond to American trade policies, he's not making empty threats. He's highlighting a geographic reality that gives Canada genuine leverage over a portion of the United States. Before we jump into the next part, where things take a turn and real people start feeling the pressure, make sure you're subscribed. We're covering these global power plays not just for headlines, but to show how they ripple into everyday life. And trust me, what's coming next is the part most people miss, because this isn't just about tolls anymore. It's about whether entire towns in Alaska will even have access to food and fuel at all. Let's get into it. What Premier Abiy understands, and what many Americans have failed to grasp, is that Alaska's physical detachment from the mainland isn't just a geographic curiosity. It's a vulnerability that threatens the daily lives of thousands of ordinary citizens caught in this high-stakes standoff. Communities like Haidaider face a terrifying reality. Their survival literally depends on roads running through potentially hostile foreign territory. This isn't abstract geopolitics for the residents of towns like Skagway and Haines. These communities exist in a precarious balance, entirely dependent on cross-border access for everything from emergency medical care to basic groceries and heating fuel. For them, the threat isn't just higher prices, It's the possibility of complete isolation. Imagine waking up to find your town's only lifeline to the outside world effectively severed by a political dispute happening thousands of miles away in Washington and Ottawa. The human toll of this diplomatic chess match becomes painfully clear when you look at how these remote Alaskan towns function. With no alternative supply routes, even temporary disruptions at the border could lead to empty store shelves, medical supply shortages, and fuel reserves running dangerously low. These aren't inconveniences, they're potential humanitarian emergencies waiting to happen. Jamie Benson, executive director of the Alaska Trucking Association, didn't mince words about the toll proposal's impact. It will significantly increase transportation costs, disrupt supply chains, and raise prices for essential goods that Alaskans rely on. This isn't just industry scaremongering, it's the stark reality for a state where nearly everything must be imported through Canada. The timing couldn't possibly be worse. Alaska already brings extreme challenges to supply chains. Roads are treacherous, and the demand for heating fuel skyrockets, and the margin for error in logistics planning shrinks to nearly zero. Any delays at the border could transform an already difficult situation into a genuine crisis for families already struggling with Alaska's high cost of living. At the heart of this dispute lies the 1977 treaty between the United States and Canada, which explicitly prohibits tolls on the Alaska Highway. British Columbia is attempting to sidestep this agreement through creative legal interpretation, arguing that the proposed tolls target new infrastructure rather than the highway itself. This creative wordplay has triggered an international legal confrontation, where both sides claim the other is violating long-standing agreements. The legal maneuvers might seem like typical diplomatic posturing, but the consequences are anything but theoretical. If British Columbia successfully implements these tolls despite the treaty's provisions, it creates a dangerous precedent that access to an American state can be restricted through administrative actions by a foreign government. Trump's response to the toll proposal was immediate and characteristically forceful. He labeled the move illegal and threatened severe countermeasures, including freezing infrastructure funds and launching a comprehensive review of cross-border treaties. His aggressive stance has turned what might have been a routine trade dispute into a potential diplomatic crisis, with rhetoric growing increasingly personal as he dismissed Premier Eby as merely a weak provincial bureaucrat. The escalating tension has created a situation where Alaskans find themselves powerless pawns in a geopolitical struggle. While politicians in Victoria, Ottawa, and Washington trade increasingly hostile barbs, it's the ordinary residents of Alaska who stand to suffer the most immediate and severe consequences. They didn't create this trade war, they can't control its outcome, and yet they'll bear the brunt of its effects. This standoff exposes a fundamental vulnerability in America's territorial integrity that few had seriously considered before. Unlike any other state, Alaska can effectively be isolated from the rest of the country through purely administrative measures by a foreign power. No military action needed, just paperwork, border delays, and strategic application of regulations. It's a sobering realization for a nation that prides itself on sovereignty and territorial control. The reality of Alaska's situation challenges conventional wisdom about American power. The state's reliance on Canadian infrastructure becomes even more critical. Supply chains already stretched thin will face additional pressures from weather conditions, making any border delays or cost increases potentially catastrophic. For families living paycheck to paycheck, The difference between affordable necessities and crisis-level prices could come down to decisions made in British Columbia's legislature rather than Washington, D.C. This border standoff has exposed a geopolitical reality that many Americans never consider. Physical geography remains a powerful force in international relations, even in our digital age. Canada's leverage over Alaska represents a rare power imbalance where a smaller nation holds significant control over its superpower neighbor. Historical precedents like the 1956 Suez Crisis remind us how strategic transit routes can become weapons in diplomatic conflicts. While the US-Canada relationship has weathered previous storms, this dispute reveals the fragility of even the strongest alliances when economic interests collide. As this crisis escalates toward potentially the most serious US-Canada confrontation in modern history, the question remains whether cooler heads will prevail before Alaskans face the consequences. So, what's your take on this whole showdown? Should Canada be flexing its geographical advantage, or is this just an overreach that risks destabilizing a vital alliance? Let us know what you think in the comments, and if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next breakdown of the global stories shaping our future. Because what's happening at the Alaska-Canada border right now, it could be a preview of a much bigger geopolitical shift.